Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and welcome to another TMM special for Anfield Index. People, the transfer window shut. What was it? 10 days ago, literally. But the amount of stories and links that are still coming out, it does just seem night and day to what it used to be for Liverpool. And the names are impressive. Some you'll like, some maybe not so much. We're going to run through them all. But before I sort of get into the detail and sort of put you on the spot that way, I always ask you at the start, when you're looking at these profiles, as a spoiler alert, give the viewers a taste. What are you thinking?
I think the first two we've looked at make sense to me. I mean, one of them are if you don't want to sign this kid for Liverpool, I don't think football's for you. If you know one of the lads we're looking at, and the options. I think we chatted before that it makes sense in terms of the range of players that are looking at the profiles. There's a couple of oldies we've already looked at that I quite like, and good to see them back. And there's some other couple. So yeah, there's some players in here who, to be honest with you, bar a couple, I'd be happy with them seeing them in a red shirt, leaning at the actor. I really would. I think that's kind of a weird place to be, right? As a club now. When you see a name linked, you're like, yeah, right, that's a good player. Whereas before you'd be like, oh, who's he? You'd have to do a bit of digging. Is he worthwhile? Now it's like, no, I get why we might sign him. And that makes a lot of sense. And okay, cool. If we do it, we do it. So yeah, there's some good players in here. There is some fantasy gold dust. And then there's some also, that's a solid signing type thing.
A proper mix. Who'd have thought with all the players we've got, we're still looking at the targets we're linked with and thinking, they could improve us or they could be a really good signing. So we will get into it, and probably we'll get into Barts, the opening link that loads and loads of people have been looked at and inspired by recently. Michael Elise, a Bayern Munich player currently, formerly of Crystal Palace, formerly of Reading as well, so got Premier League, homegrown experience that way. A young age, I mean, tearing it up from what we've seen in, the Bundesliga and different bits so far, and international duty as well. I think the other thing to say in this, Barts, is there's real traction in this because Lewis Steele's written about it. Others have mentioned it, haven't they? A potential release clause. And we've got to obviously mention Bayern Space, the hero of the summer, in the mix as well. But I think it's fair to say is as we go through and look at Michael Elise's profile, if there's any truth in this, and time will tell, there's 1,000,001 reasons to be excited, isn't there?
100%. I mean, I think we were notionally linked with him before he went to Bayern, right? And it was kind of like, yeah. And then it was like a bit of a shock to some that he chose Bayern over going to, say, Axel City, whatever it was. I can't remember the exact time. But he's got out there and absolutely stealing the thunder of being a great player. I think he showed tremendous pedigree at Palace, and then he's gone to that next level. You can argue the Bully, it's a different league. Yeah, it's 15% less than the UK. We know the conversion and all that kind of stuff. But to still go there and perform at a Champions League club week in, week out, because the pressure is there. They're a dominant side, but you still have to perform because the crowd are not that forgiving. So yeah, I think he's a great player. If you look at his FBreit, this even looking at it, it's just green. You're picking out where it's slightly down. I mean, defensively, okay, sure. That's probably an area we need to cover off straight away. The good thing is he's high on blocks, right? 66% over blocks. So he's good at getting in the pass lane, doing that. Fine. Clearances, aerials, probably not his game. It's not something we wouldn't necessarily need to do. If he's coming in for that right wing slot, you've also got to remember it's not very often that Mo Salah is asked to defensively win aerial duels. So, and equally, in the crosses and the rest of it, Mo is generally not on those end of moves. If Mo scored his head, he scored his head, but it's not the move we have. So it's not a bad thing that Elise isn't strong in that area. Tackles, interceptions, we could do it being a bit higher, but tackles we don't really want them to. We want them to do the block. So defensively, it's not all bad. All right, we've seen a lot worse than that. All right, so Middle. So what is he doing between the boxes, as we always say? 19th percentile for progressive passes received, which means he receives it close to goal. The way that the Bully League set up is transitional in nature. So that's what you want. You want to hit an outball to him, and then he carries it and creates something from nothing or for somebody else. Take on's 94 percentile, 2 point, just under 3 a game, which is outstanding, obviously. Carry 96 percentile of aggressive passes. Not only can he receive it, he can also pass it really high. 81% passing completion for a wide ball is really high. Now, Mo Salah typically around the mid-70s. Yeah, so for him to be in the 80s is really good. Now let's look at what does he do at the real sharp end, should we say, using all the anecdotes we can. 98th percentile for shot creating action. That's over 6 a game. Over 6 a game. And they've got Harry Kane there, who was the golden boy when he top scorer last season. Yeah. So there's a reason there. Elise speeding him, which if you think of our model now, we're moving to having 2 phenomenal 9s. It's not a bad thing to be looking at, you know. Shots taken over 3.5 a game, which is good for a wide forward, moseying around that, so that's good. Non-penalty goals 0.5 and non-penalty XG 0.41. So generally, all of the attacking metrics that we will be looking at are above the 90th percentile, which is acceptable, right? Now, we all love Mo Salah, but we do have to start planning as a club for life after Mo Salah, all right? Mm-hmm. We're not saying his career is going to end tomorrow, but it's just we have to start that process, you know. So Elise is blue here, Mo's red. Elise is the same, if not better than Mo in most of the metrics here, apart from non-penalty XG. This is only for the last year, though, so this would include the slow off of the whole Liverpool team at the end of last season and the slowish start to the season, should we say, whereas we finished on a massive crescendo and have started our house on fire. So there's a little bit of context there, although a year is a long later. All right. So I think there's a lot of positives to be looking at in terms of minutes. Always one to looking at. So in the league last year, he played 2-3. So all in all, you'll be looking a lot higher. In the Premier League, he's played 2-7. So he's hitting there's been no problem, should we say, in him stepping up from playing. You know, Palace would have been a game a week. No offense, Palace fans, but that's just how it is for you guys. This season is great. You've got European football, but typically that club was only doing a game a week, right? Then he went to Germany, played 2-3, which is 2 games a week. So that's a good thing for him to show that there's been still no injury problems, or serious ones anyway. So I think that's a very good thing to be looking at. Looking at some of the stuff that I'll run for him, he's heavily involved here. Really dark lines linking up to him in the past work. If you look at his involvement, he's there involved pretty much every minute of the match. He's got a touch or a pass. In this game, he took 4 shots. He's involved in passing chains at low and medium, which is, again, the transitional nature, but it helps you with that. And in terms of zone 14 and the half space, he's very involved. We blow that up, particularly down in the right half space, which is some of the patterns you'll see Mo do. All right. So, yes, there are some really positive elements for him in terms of threat. Heavy. 51% of his threat in the half space. That's really exciting to see as a player you're going to be signing. And he's largely involved for a lot of Bayern's high volume of threat in the right side, which is where he plays. Defensively, which is an area we saw wasn't great. It's okay. He still put pressures on in the area, which is better than not, right? Which is better than the left-hand side in this game. But, some areas to work on. And his zone of off ball is second largest in the entire Bayern side. If we look at how he's on the ball, I'll bring that up. His zone covers 4 squares. So, I think this is a really smart play. You're going to tell me he's going to cost a lot of money. But it's one of those, isn't it? If Mo Salah moves on and he still ends the season being integral to our attack, which is probably likely, right? What do you want to do? Do you want to get a youngster that could potentially scale up, or do you want to carry on with the level you've achieved and you don't buy anybody else at somewhere you're going to buy an Elise? That's the choice that Klopp wants to make. If it's Elise, I can't see a downside to him slotting in that right wing for us.
I think with this, you're right, because this is not at all Mo Salah slander. We adore Mo Salah. He's my favourite player. He's an absolute demigod for us. What a player. And obviously we hope he continues. But you're right. We do have to look in the future of what will happen. And, Liverpool are smart in that regard. Succession planning starts well before. You're right as well in terms of the clause. God, I never thought we'd be speaking about Bayern space on a transfer market metrics program. But here we are. There's obviously been the rumour about the release clause. And is that true? Suggestion it's around the 90 million quid mark, which we'll step into very shortly. But even in terms of the stats, as you said, because Elise is, I think, 23 years old. Even last season, and yes, there's the bully tax and all that, but actually think how good Mo Salah was last season. Should win the Ballon d'Or for us, of course, but whether that happens is a different thing. Elise actually matched him in assists last season as well, but down obviously on the goals, but still scoring 20 across all competitions, in terms of headline stats. We sometimes, Steve, we try and balance it where, for context and everything. I don't think we should undersell it, though, when it's there, Bart. Michael Elise is an elite player. Michael Elise has got elite stats. Yes, Michael Elise will cost a pretty penny, even with this release clause. But if we don't, Chelsea, City, and others will, won't they? We're talking about an elite player here.
Yeah, 100%. You're absolutely right to not beat around the bush here. Yeah, just checking up his physical stats actually. So 33, just under 34k an hour top speed and a distance of 23. Where he's only a few games in, so 188 intensive runs. But no, he's an elite player. Absolutely bang on. He's playing international football. He's playing week in, week out for one of the European old school, old fashioned big sides, right? You talk about European royalty and Bayern are right in there, and he plays for them week in, week out, and he's a star man. If you sign him from Bayern, we spoke about having statement signings this summer, and don't get it wrong, all of them are phenomenal players, right? But to go and get a player from a traditional big European six like Elise would be a hell of a statement. So, yeah, this is a absolutely bang for your buck. It would cost you a lot, but you're buying a top player.
Yeah. And to be honest, people, everyone will have their thoughts in the chat panel, no doubt. Listen, if there isn't this release clause that's been rumoured, Bayern are obviously, and I know there's talk they need a sell to fund the training ground and everything else, but the fee, I'm not going to say it's too rich for our blood, but it would be extortionate, let's put it that way. So we'll probably find out in the summer, probably after he stars at the World Cup, just what that is or isn't for Michael Elise. But an elite player, let's not mince words on that. In terms of, I suppose you could say, going from a high, this is the second name that we've got here on Anfield Index that Liverpool have had a good look at this summer. And there will be reactions in the chat panel on this for Yankuba Minteh in terms of Brighton and the difficulty dealing with them, in terms of being at Feyenoord the season before on loan and working under Arne Slot. But general info that we've got, people, is that Yankuba Minteh has been looked at considerably by Liverpool. A different profile, it's important to say, what the Barts will go through than Elise, but it is important we look at this, Barts, not just in terms of this is a poor runner-up to Michael Elise, but having a look at Yankuba Minteh, from the analyst suggestions we got, the potential to even be an assist machine and whether that looks possible.
No, I think you're right to say this is a very different profile. All right, this isn't Elise. This is someone different, right? And I think that once you get that out of your head, I think you're in a better place to look at this player. And you can look at that just by he's got two profiles for a start, right? He's a midfielder and he's an attacking winger. Now we'd be buying him for the attacking winger side because we're pretty well stacked midfielders, to be honest with you. So let's look at that. Defensively, straight away, you will see the difference in profile. Yeah. This lad has got tackles, interceptions, blocks, clearances, aerials, right? Now, Brighton play differently. We know that, but they play in the Premier League. So there's the intensity to that game. And if he's putting those numbers in defensively in the Premier League, whether we use that or not when he comes to us, that's not a bad pedigree to have. You know, it wouldn't be a reason to sign him over everything else, but it's still... It shows you some of the work ethic and the ability to play as part of a unit to make sure the team wins. So that's an important plus point. Between the boxes, okay, so he receives a similar amount of slightly less than progressive passes, all right? We get that. It's 70th percentile rather than 90th percentile, but still receives a lot, right? Over 9 a game. Touches in the penalty box, 94th percentile. So he's still in the box a lot, right? Considering he's doing a lot of defensive work, that's still quite impressive. Take-on's 2.5. I think Elise was 3 over 3, then 3.5, 4. So that's good. And then you got carries. He's at 4.5, which is 75th percentile. Okay, so there is some good things. He's more of a carrier. He's not making the progressive passes that Elise was doing or Mo Salah would do. His pass completion is 62, which is like that would be the lowest player in our squad.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to put that in context, that's like, Canate's got a better pass completion than this guy, and he's not known for his passing, right? So pass attempted, his volume isn't high either, so he's not trying to pass the ball a lot. We've already said this before. A lot of players, you can have a high completion and not a lot of passes. You just increase the volume. But if they're both low, so he'd have to work on that element of his game. Slot would know better, as you said. He's worked with him before, right? So if we look at what he does in the box, though, clearly he isn't going to be the same as Elise. He's an elite player, right? But as you said, assists, can he do some stuff with that? So expected assisted goals is 67th percentile. So the reason I'm highlighting that one is not just cherry pick and say, I'll try and make him look better than anything else. We've said it before with Leone, right? There was evidence that he can pass the ball, but it wasn't showing up in the completion because of the team he was playing in, right? So the receiver wasn't necessarily able to say, oh, that's a great pass. I'll actually bother to control it, This is where the expected assists come into, because that could be they'll judge the pass he makes, and the better quality player would have made that into an assist or a chance. So again, Brighton fans, if you're listening in, welcome. But I'm not knocking your team, but there is a difference in quality of the 4 players between playing for Liverpool and there is Brighton. So that's why that's an important thing to look out for, right? Shots, that's low. Opportunity, Brighton don't have loads of balls, so that'll be a less. And all the rest of it are lower down we'd expect. But there is some evidence there, and the club will have vast amount of data to be able to extrapolate that to say, what is he doing? Could he give us some more? Obviously, if you compare him to Mo Salah, he's going to get beaten up on the metrics that Mo Salah is better at. But off the ball, as it would suggest, he is better than Mo Salah in those elements off the ball. And some of that, as you know, Mo referenced it in the last interview in the last season, that Slot, but they both had a conversation about trying to preserve Mo, wasn't it? And said, don't do as much. So there's an element there, because Mo used to be pretty decent off the ball. So it's just only the last 18 months where he's not been asked to do as much. Then you've got some of the other, he's in and around the same sort of area as Mo. He does take more players on at the moment than Mo, and carries it more. But, it's an interesting thing to look at. If we look at where he is on the charts, he is heavily involved. All right, because he's a key player for Brighton, right? Let's not diminish him. He's a key player in Brighton's setup. Is it the volume? Is it the quality we expect for Liverpool or Bayern Munich? If we look at Elise, no, but he is involved. Okay, he's not involved as much, but some of that you have to give the context. Brighton don't have the ball as much. True. So it's very hard to give your attacking players a touch every minute if you don't have the ball for 5-10 minutes. So it's. You have to take that into account. Lower taxes involved in in and around the areas, not as much, but he's still in those areas where we need to do in the half spaces. Off the ball, just to show the work, he's heavily involved in some of the work. Yeah. So a lot of strips, 4-4-4. So it's not like he's not doing his off the ball work, which is an element we would need in terms of his threat. So a lot of his threat is wider than we would normally see for one of our players, which normally see a starting position wide and then it drifts into the right half space. Okay, so that would be a tweak to his game. Not saying he couldn't do it, but it's just we would ask normally our wide players to come in and assist. Yeah. But still, he's creating threat in the areas he is. For Brighton, they're fairly well balanced. Actually, Matoma's on and off on the other side, so there's a difference in attack. So yeah, I would say there is some good elements to his game. The pleasing thing is that expected assists element is interesting to see how that could pan out. And I could imagine. I know it's Brighton, but unless he has an amazing season, I can't imagine he's going to be. He's not going to be an Elise price, is he? He's going to be, 40, 50 million. So, it's, this kid's potential, but he's already played in the Premier League. He's already shown off the ball. He can do some work. And he seems to be having that there is elements of his game which maybe in a better team, he would be able to get better assists. Shooting wise, I think you already cited that they're looking at him as an assist monster rather than a goal getter. Yeah, his shots are not really. I mean, he's a one shot here and 2% chance in this game. It's a one game, but he's not. He has none of his stats are showing that he's going to score you, 15 goals a season. Sort of thing.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
With Minteh, I mean, because people will have watched him in the Premier League. I mean, they'll know he's rapid. His acceleration is insane. So obviously that comes into the mix. But is it fair to say, because almost it's the way he follows Elise, this is a completely different style of left-footed, right-sided winger, isn't it, in terms of what he brings, whereas Elise is an all-round game. It is that Minteh's there, and Arne Slot will know him, of course, from Feyenoord in his time, that ability just to burn a man, basically, and make stuff happen, that if it was to be looking at Minteh, do you think it'd be in essence of Minteh's job will be destroy your fullback, get that ball in the middle to Isak and Ekitike? That's where they'd be looking at it.
I think you're spot on with that. My only question for that is then where's Frimpong fit into that? Because he's potentially been bought to give you that on the outside. If that is his game as well, there's a thing there. But no, I think in terms of what you ask him to do, you ask him to beat the fullback and then put the ball into the designated areas that you've been asked to put it into, which might be a pullback, might be a crossbar, whatever it is, but whatever the pattern of play. But no, that seems to be what he can do for us. And if that's the way we want to evolve that right side, then it could be a smart buy. If you can't get someone at least saying, you don't want to pay £80 million up front for a release clause. But no, I think there's potential there. I think you would just have to. I mean, let's be honest here. Whoever comes into that number 11 shirt or that slot, there's going to be an element of you're not Mo Salah.
Of course.
It's how much you want to weigh on a kid's shoulders that you're coming in to replace a legend. Do you know what I mean? There's a psychological element here as well. All right. Whereas Elise might be might cost you more, but he might be able to handle that better than Minteh, who's coming in as a completely different player. So, I could see why they might be interested. It just, you could also see us buy both. We're very good at buying two for the same position now, right? So, but it's an interesting one. Definitely an interesting one.
Is it fair to say as well that, because naturally, in terms of grouping them together, Elise, whilst it's never exactly Mo Salah, and it's not fair to do a direct, straight-up comparison, but is maybe as close to as what you can see on that side for Mo Salah. I know people are going to jump on different type of players. I get that. But just in terms of the stats and what we're seeing, whereas Minteh would be a change of your style, as in you're talking a very fast, very hard-working, great for the defensive and putting in the team. And maybe if Minteh was coming in, you're thinking the Mo Salah burden, maybe understandably, would fall on the likes of Ekitike and Isak in the middle. This would be more to change that style down the right.
Yeah, no, I think it would have to be a fundamental sea change, yes, to the way we play and build. The good thing with having a speed merchant on that right side is something that you and I have spoken about. We don't really have an outball that is electric at the moment. I mean, people are going to say, but it's Ekatike and Isak are quick. They are quick, but they're not like, they're not rapid. They're not, this kid's rapid, like off the mark, first 5-10 meters, he's going to burn you. So on a break, that classic clock reds and Slot does it at times. We have instances where we break. We don't currently have absolute burning pace to kill the opposition on the attack. We can still do it, right? But we haven't got the line. So this could be another. This would give you a good armory for that. You would just have to make sure someone else keeps up with him to finish the move off. That's all.
And the other thing to bring into the mix, as proved this summer, the current people in charge are not afraid of shuffling that forward deck at all, aren't they? And, selling people on or changing things around at all. So that comes into the thinking there as well. We will see, people. Just to be clear, not for 1 second are we advocating anything about getting rid of Mo Salah. We're demigod, favourite player, but succession planning does have to happen at some point. In terms of other positions, Barts, I mean, even though this window's closed, the Mark Guehi story, I mean, he's not even a Liverpool player and we're talking about his story. I mean, Paul Joyce, Bascom put it out to say, not coming in January, Liverpool will not revisit that. But even today, Chris Bascom and Paul Joyce writing about, it's expected that on a free transfer next summer, like obviously there's a long way and a lot of things that can happen till then, but we could only report on what we've been told. The big thing that we've got on this, Barts, and I think the key context for this is setting it fully. Liverpool had a lot of centre-backs on their radar last season, knowing last summer, that Leone has been the one they've pulled the trigger from for that young talent. That was it. But there's been others they really looked at. Mark Guehi was an option, as they call it, the quote-unquote market opportunity in terms of a leader, homegrown, decent fee because of the time left on his contract, Premier League experience. It was that collective ticks that put him to the top of the list for a move, that market opportunity, as they said. But this is so important to say, people, that digging around on this, as a pure defender or other elements to his game, Mark Guehi was not profiling top for Liverpool. It was those market opportunity elements that pushed him higher. That going to throw some names and have a look at them now. Nico Schlottbeck, Dortmund, German international. He was seriously looked at last summer. Jeremy Jacquet, the young Frenchman, a beast, as we were told. They had a real look at. Maybe Leone for now, but does that bring Jacquet into the mix? Koularakis, the Greek boy, looked at heavily, as we know, many a time. Wolfsburg, a club that, no disrespect, Liverpool will feel they could raid quite easily. You know that. And then the final one, even Premier League experience, Jean-Paul Van Heeka, Brighton, a year left to go on his deal. And as the analyst we spoke to told us, a progressive monster from centre-back. So I suppose in terms of Guehi obviously being the market opportunity, Barts, but all those that Liverpool looked at, another season is a long time. And the picture can look very different. Like Ibu could well be leaving on a free. I know we suspect many that will happen. I'm going to give you the unenviable task. I can't really phrase it a different way. Load of grenade here, Barts. Rank them.
I think you're right. Like sometimes a market opportunity comes along, it doesn't happen. It doesn't mean you keep flogging it, right? And smart people don't. They sometimes view it as an opportunity to reassess, and you might still do it, but you don't do. Fakir is another one who was in the tracksuit, did all his interviews, never happened, right? We never went back for him, right? So we moved on and did something else. I'm not saying they're going to do that with Guehi. It seems like he was very far down the line, and I think we're a bit more humanistic than that. But let's just say we don't. All right, as you said, Of those names you're going to put, I'm probably going to put Xhaka at the bottom. Okay, so we'll start with the bottom, and that's people are going to say, "Oh, he's brilliant," and I'm like, "Yes, there are some elements. You just have to profile him against Koularakis. If we profile him against, if I can get up our own Leone we've bought, some of the other players that we've brought in, even Guehi, he profiles okay for a kid, right?
Yeah.
He has some exceptional talents in the box, which is things we don't normally associate with being a centre half. He's good at the tackles and aerials, something we do look out for centre halves.
Yeah.
And he got take on and progressive passes. Okay, so there are some elements that he is good at, right? And if you just look at his brief profile on F-Brief, tackles, interceptions, 90, all in the 95th plus percentile, right?
Yeah,
which is good, but it can be a reactive defender as well. Okay, he does play. He plays for Rennes, doesn't he? So they're not a dominant team, so they would have to do some emergency defending, which is probably where he is. But as you said, his take-ons and his progressive carries are similar to Ibu's kind of in that kind of ballpark as well. Passing, not this kid's strength. All right, 86% off for completion, but his volume's really low. In the box, though, which is a strange thing to be talking about with a centre half, doesn't create them, but in terms of shots, takes nearly a shot a game, which is quite high for a centre half, and has assists at ATF, which could be a headed on goal, and it ends up going someone else. Expected goals as well, so 92nd, which shows you he's in the right areas and potentially could do better. All right, so there are some things to like, and as I say, compared to Canate. Yeah, if we look down at his minutes, which is always a thing to start with, people are going to be telling me, "Oh, he's got 100% aerial." Yeah, that's this season, right? He's only played 390s. That's basically meant he's competed for six headers across 3 games with 100%. That is a definition of stat packing. Okay, so it's just put that to one side. Over a course of a whole season, 65, which it isn't bad. I'm just saying it's not 100, right? So, it's good. Playing time in the league, low, right? Remember we bought a young centre-half, very high potential, played 1,200 minutes in Serie A. Many would say Serie A is better than the League One. So Ligue 1, sorry. And this kid's played less than Leone. So you'd have to weigh that up with the 25-30% progression in terms of minutes. He's not going to be able to give you much more than, let's say he does 1,000 this season. So you look at 1,500 as we said next season. So there's some elements to take into account. He's very young. If you look at some of the stuff I've done with him, his areas are okay. He's not involved massively. Threat-wise, doesn't contribute a huge amount to the team, mainly because, as we said, his passing is not great and he carries it a limited amount. He's on the ball 9% of the time. His dual success is 25 in this game. Pass success is quite high in this game. He's involved in a lot of the recycling, which is okay. I'm not against that, but there's not a lot of forward movement from him. And obviously, because he's a centre half, he is involved in the recycling quite a bit with the on the ball a fair amount, and therefore he does feature in some of their longer strain moves. So maybe there's a bit of potential there, but right here, right now, I'm not sure that's the kid for us to move on as an alternative to not signing an England international. All right, and that's probably where I'll put him at the bottom, if that makes sense to you.
Just before I suppose we go to the next one as well, do you think it comes into the mix for you at the bottom? Because it doesn't obviously not mean a bad player by any means at all, but we have just almost bought, as many are reporting, what Liverpool consider the best young centre half in the markets. They've ranked Leone ahead of him already. The minutes wise, Leone's played more. So obviously, if as we suspect, Ibu exits, you're going to asking this kid to all of a sudden jump up to the Premier League, play serious minutes. And for those that have seen him as a physical stature, the kid's a unit. He's an absolute unit. You can see that. And he seems good at defending spaces. It sounds very Ibu Canate-esque almost, doesn't it? But Is it just the lack of minutes and the ability, the on the ball stuff that are the big triggers for you?
Yeah, 100%. To scale from, I mean, let's be nice. Let's say he does increase by 25%. He hits 1,200 mark, right, this season in minutes. Yeah. But if Ibu goes, that's 3,500 minutes or 3,000 minutes. That's a huge scale up, right? And that's more than is recommended for a kid. And as you say, he's on the ball, but he's not showing. Now, he might improve that in a season, right? We're judging him 3 games in, so he might improve that. But that's still a long way to go from being a League One player to a Premier League player. And if he gets hit over the head for being, he's not good on the ball, you can let him have the ball and they'll tackle him and that kind of thing. But he's actually pretty good. Like, he's a Premier League player. He's one of the best centre-halves in the world. He's not as good as VVD, no. And he is probably one that I've seen on this show you can replace, right? But it doesn't make him a poor player. So you have to replace that ability, and that's where Guehi came in as an alternative. Because yes, he wasn't as good aerially, but he played the minutes. He was young, he was quick, and he was better on the ball. And that's some of the balance on when you make a decision. This kid here hasn't got the minutes, hasn't got the on-ball ability. Yes, he probably matches him aerially and through pace and physicality, but the other areas could be better than other alternatives, is what I would say if we were looking at it at the club.
Well, that's a high standard for your bottom one anyway, because there are certain things to like and potential. So, next up the list, where are you going?
I think I'm going to go, and I think the next 2 for me are fairly not level, as one better than the other. So, Schlottbeck for me is probably the next one for me because he had that injury, right? Yeah. When we did him, I think we profiled him on this show just before he got the injury, and then he got the injury. It was like, damn, that's it. He's not going to be considered. And it always takes a bit of time to get back from those. We saw it with VVD. He wasn't quite the same till about 2 seasons later down the line. Right. So I'm not saying he couldn't get back to the level. Please, people, rehab's really good now. Operations work and all that kind of thing. But for me, he's in that little bit of a segment where I probably wouldn't invest loads of money in him. But having said that, again, looking at his profiles defensively, does the block stuff that we like a centre-half to do, is a bit proactive, a bit more tackle heavy than we'd like. In between the boxes, though, this is the stuff that we both really liked about when he first profiled him. He can carry the ball and he can pass the ball. 89% passing, attempted in the 98th percentile for centre-halves. That's really good volume. Carries it 91st percentile. Progressive passes at 90th. So he's doing them line breaker ones that we know we signed Leone to do and BVD started to do. So there are some really nice elements about his on-the-ball game. In terms of in the box, shot creator action is 99 percentiles. It's nearly 2 a game for a centre half. Shots 0.7, 80th. So and the expected goals is in 96. So he probably could do better with the chances he is getting in the box. Yeah. Let's compare him for the guy that is potentially going to be going out the other way, and largely with Schlottbeck in the blue is better than Ibu on everything apart from aerials and non-penalty goals and clearances, right? So there's a lot of things to like about this kid. Yes, there's a buddy tax, had to reduce by 15%. Okay, cool. Take that on board. Where does he compare to Guehi? He's better than Guehi nearly everything apart from non-penalty goals and non-penalty XG. Okay. Remember, Guehi has just scored from 30 yards, though, so that will affect his stats. Yeah. Just to say. So, but if we just scroll down a little bit, playing time, he's got some good bank of minutes here in the league, nearly 3,000 minutes in the Bundesliga. That's decent. That's not even taking into account any European or cup competitions. Very good. In terms of aerial duels, 65 this season, last season 58. That's why he's a little bit of a on the cusp. But if you look at his seasons before, 75, 64. So there are some definite qualities that we would look for in a centre-half. Schlottbeck, when we looked at him a while ago, his EPV was good. He was in good areas. He creates well. Defensively, He defends well in the areas. It's high volume of defensive actions. So yeah, there's a lot of things I think you would look at and say, yeah, he's involved more than Xhaka was in the French league. He's involved in a lot of good chain length. He's involved in creating passes into key areas. So there is a lot to like about him. He's still at Dortmund, isn't he? Let me just go back.
Yeah.
But the thing that I was just, it's the thing that it's just that injury part. And people are being just always cautious with injury, with the knees and that kind of thing. I'm sure he'll be fine. But right now, of course, he's probably going to go to the World Cup. So that'll affect his thing as well. So his speed, he's not actually, he's not played in this. He's not played yet. So, good height, good weight, 25. Let's see. But yeah, for me at the moment, there's a lot of attributes I still like about this kid, right? Still like about it. German centre halves can pass the football. They're quick, they're dominant, all the elements that we'd like to see. That's why we bought Canate, right? Because he was in that league, he was groomed to play that way. But it's just that injury element that I'd be a little bit worried about at the moment. In a year's time, cool. See what happens there in the season.
I suppose a year's time could be crucial because in a year's time, he will only have 1 year left on his deal at Dortmund. So obviously the price and like you said, in a year's time, we'll know a bit more about his injury situation, whether he's able to play this season. As he said, he's not played a single minute there. I suppose it's important. People will say, hold on, this is just tick, tick, tick. Why is he third then? That makes no sense. I think part of it as well is to say the injury as well. But Liverpool were looking at it. The info from Schlottbeck we've got is a lot when they were a bit uncertain if VVD would renew or not.
Yeah.
And Schlottbeck is left-footed. He is not VVD. That probably is injury and not being VVD. That's going to count against him being on the left side, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. No, because even in a year's time, he's not going to be cheap, right?
No.
He's going to be 40 million quid. Let's just say for him to then, he's not going to play a lot with VVD there. Do you know? He's not. It's just not, because VVD is going to play every league game. Let's be honest here. For the next 2 years, VVD, touch wood, without any problems, is going to play every league game. So whoever comes in is left footed is at a disadvantage. Yeah, so that's another reason they said it. The injury and the fact he's left-sided would just knock it down for me. If he was right-sided, I'd be like, this is a serious move for us to make in the summer. But he's not. He plays on the left. So, yeah.
And then speaking of left-sided centre-halves, because that only leaves you with Koularakis or Van Heeka. Are we going left? I'm going to go. Right?
Koularakis is the next one I'm going to go for. No injury. Again, we've profiled him before. I think he's a good all-round player if I can get him lined up. I think there's not as much sparkling green, should we say, but it's more of a consistent profile, should we say. There's not a lot of red on there. Pass completion at 82 is low, but is low for centre halves, but 82 is still a good pass completion. Yeah, his non-penalty goals is low, and his non-penalty XG. But in terms of shots, 91st, expected goals 74th. His progressive pass is 65th. There's a lot of elements that I think maybe opportunity in a better team would help. Is he Wolfsburg, isn't he? Is that right? I've got that right. Yeah. So they're sort of a mid-bully side. They're not like a Dortmund are typically high possession, on the ball, will be one of the better non-Bayern teams, right? Wolfsburg are kind of in the two in the front. So if you compare him with Canate is better than him for sure in some areas, but he holds his own in terms of some of the defensive metrics, in terms of how he does against dribblers, how he progressive passes, he does better, receiving take-ons, shot creating actions, creates more action. So it's not a dominant sphere where you think, Canate is going to be better than me. That just isn't the case. Canate's key secret weapon is his aerials. We know that. All right. Yeah. This kid's aerials, though, just to have a quick look, he's only not really played 2, and he's got lost 4 out of 6, so he's at 25% this season. 60 last season, so he's a low 60s player. but I think he's younger than the previous guy, so played less. There's not a lot of stats available from Greece anyway. Minutes played, again, good level of minutes, 2.5, just in the league. So that could scale up quite easily. You haven't got to worry like we do Xhaka about fitting in and upscaling from that point of view. If you're looking at it more in depth, he's involved in play. Yes, he is. Considering they don't have a lot of the ball, that's a decent amount of time for him to be on it as a centre half. He's involved in a lot of the lower chains. He's not quite as high, and he isn't quite involved in dangerous areas. So that would be an area where he potentially needs to upscale. Jules didn't have any in this game. And threat-wise, he's involved in some good areas, right? So there are some threat coming to him. Might not necessarily be from him, but he's involved in those areas, okay? Off the ball, some good, solid percentages around where he's been playing, okay? So I think, for me, as I said, these two are kind of like this. This kid's not been injured, and that's probably why I went for him over Schlottbeck.
Yeah.
But either of them, Schlottbeck hasn't played this season. Koularakis has only played 2 games. So it's still early doors, and we'll see how the season pans out. But I think they're both good centre halves. One's just not had a major knee injury, though. So there you go.
Is it probably fair to say is one has had a major knee injury? Yes, Schlottbeck has got that pedigree more, of course, international caps and all that. But if out of the two as well, if one was to come in, almost like the way Marmondashvili's understudy in Allison, you think for a year and then you'll say, Koularakis is going to be more happier to come in and learn the trade a bit on the left side of the Premier League, sort of serve under VVD, where Schlottbeck's like, I'm good enough to play now, and I've played at Champions League level, international caps and all that. That probably plays into the mix as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%. It's got to be the right fit for the dressing room and the team. So, I think this kid, again, would be happily to come into that environment, learn off BVD, be one of the best centre halves in the modern game. So, why wouldn't you want to learn off him? And there'll be opportunity. You still play, obviously. But, I think you're right. That's a very good point to make. And he trained with the side. All the elements that might be potential now, he could upscale and do the rest of it. So, and there'd still be 2,000 minutes for him to play. I mean, the likes, if you look at the combined, I think we looked at Kwanzaa and Gomez last season was just short of 1,500, nearly 2,000 minutes. So there's enough minutes around for that third, fourth centre half. And he would learn and develop from that. So, I think without the injury, the more happy to fit as being understudy. Is he cheap? Is he going to tell me he's cheaper or more expensive? What's the dealio?
This is the one where you never know. And obviously, Greece in the World Cup, I don't think it is looking likely. Not that I know all the international football stuff, but suggestions were in the summer that it was around 35 million that Wolfsburg were looking for, somewhere around that mark, 35 to 40. So, maybe that comes into the mix as well. We'll have to see. And, that only leaves one. And it's a Dutchman, and he's at Brighton, which it's interesting because I talked about this on News Round for Van Heeka, and some people were like, brilliant. Some people were like, God, no, not good enough and all this. It's important to set this, though, with context parts, that the info we got from analysts was a progressive monster, which is not said lightly. He's played under that De Zerbi murder ball, as it was known as well, at the back. Like, people should not just be dismissing Van Heeka straight away, should they?
No. I think much like we looked at the other Brighton lad earlier in the show, there are elements where you look at a profile and you kind of have to go the context of the team he plays for, the quality of player around, and that will show through in some of his things. Defensively, he's won a lot of aerials, to be fair. This is a good thing, right? And the first one we've seen tonight, where he's got a green bar there, right? And he's fairly well competing there with Canate, whereas the others are way off. But then you look at tackles, interception, blocks. Okay, blocks is at 50th. The other two are low, which is probably where we're okay with that. Blocks could do it a bit higher. But as you say, they play last season anyway, they play a very open game, should we say, off the ball at the back there. And what does he do between the boxes? You're right to mention the progressive. I mean, progressive carry is 95th percentile for centre half. and then passes 96th percentile. So he's progressing the ball via carry or pass at just short of 9 a game.
Jeez.
That is for a centre half.
Yeah.
That's like golden. You know what I mean? That's a really important stat, because if you look at the pairing as well, so BBD on the ball typically passes the football, right? And he's Rolls-Royce head defender. He can carry it, but he doesn't really want to do that. He wants to get on the ball, slide it on the deck, or ping it wide. That's what he wants to do. So your partner, typically, if you look at how Gomez used to play with him, Canate's play with, they carry the ball a bit, but they also do need to be able to pass the ball, because if you shut BVD off, which opposition can do, the ball comes to you and you've got to be able to pass the football. So for him to have both options as a way to move that ball forward into the Barts zone in the 10, or into whoever's going to play right, whoever's going to play left, into those areas where the progressive pass would come from our centre half. Remember, it's got to be over 20% or 20 yards to go to the goal, right? So we play high up. So that's into those zones. That's a very good option to have someone like that in your armory at the back. Comparing him to Guehi is interesting. They're similar, but not. Van Heeka is probably even better on the ball than Guehi. Guehi's better in the box, and they're both quite similar. Guehi's probably slightly better on some of the defensive metrics, but Van Heeka is better in the air defensively, which was an element we always said about Guehi. His aerial ability was his worst attribute. In terms of miscellaneous, just to get an idea about exactly where his aerials this season, not great. I was saying that though. So he's lost 10. Sorry, there you go. So he's lost just over half. Last season 62, season before that 66. So he's not started the season as well as he ended, but that's something to be looking at. In terms of minutes, just short of 3,000 for Brighton. So that's good. It's a good pedigree. It means he can play what we need him to play, 3,000. It looks like he can play that, which is good to see. From the deck that I'll do on him, heavily involved in Brighton's play, as you can see, thick lines around where he is. Involved, fair to say, probably every other minute or every minute, but a low amount, low volume. Passing chains, the way Brighton play isn't set up to play massive long chains of possession, but he's involved at the base of whatever move they start. And he has got involved in, as you said, the progressive monster. There are 3 red lines there just from this game of progressive passes, which is for Brighton is very good. If you look at how often he was on the ball, so he got 3 progressive passes in, and he only had their ball for 8% of the time. So that's pretty decent, I would say, for a centre half. Again, that weapon for us could be an interesting way. It could be an interesting profile to look at. Obviously, that's going to show up well in the threat, as you can see, 19, 25, and 25. That's really high for a centre half. That's contributing a large amount of Brighton's threat from the back. Off the ball, it's about 12% of Brighton's defensive actions are kind of in his zone, and he goes out and helps the fullback as well. So there is it's a wide, so that Canate shape that you often see where he goes out and helps the fullback, Van Heeka does that as well. So it's not this is not a bad thing to be looking at. He's not going to be involved in the others. I would say he makes sense to me. He's Premier League proven. Aerially, he's better than Guehi. He's not as good as Canate, but as we previously said, the reason Canate is sought after is because his aerial ability is up there, right? This kid's better on the ball than Canate, and he progresses it for fun. We're a team that don't have a lot of the ball. Don't have a lot of ball in comparison to the top players. If he's in a team with opportunity to pass the ball more, he could be making progressive passes for fun. So this sounds like it could be a smart bit of business. A year left on his contract as well, right? I believe. So the fee could not be quite in the usual Brighton how much do you want? Let me go to and get a mortgage out type thing. It could be a decent fee to be paying for a Premier League defender.
Yeah, and I get it. People will say in the chat panel, I think, because obviously he's not just direct with Canate, not got that pace, but it is interesting that in that element, Liverpool have bought rapido fullbacks as well, haven't they? And I know people will say, like the centre halves, he's not slow, but he's not. I appreciate Canate rapid in that sense after develop, but a slight tweak there. I think we can't undersell this. A year left to go, Premier League experience, elite progressive stats in a, no disrespect, but a non-elite team as well. A lot of clubs are going to be looking at Van Heeka this summer, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know why. I think Brighton have proven themselves to be able to uncover non-stars and give them a platform to turn them into stars, right?
Yeah.
So even on that, if you're looking for a centre half who's Premier League proven, one of the first clubs you're going to look at is Brighton. So, and then they're going to look at the fact that this guy's contract's up, and they're going to be like, yeah, okay, he's probably worth a punt. Even a club like United, who are not heavily into the scouting at the moment, I would suggest to probably would be looking there. So, yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of teams looking at him. I think it could be a really smart buy for us to get in there. He's Dutch, which will come with some goods and bads. It could mean that we have an upper hand, providing he gets on the slot, that is. But no, I think, you could see this one, right? Him and Guehi, both Premier League proven. One of them's out of contract. One of them will be very close. That could be really smart business, really, really clever business from Liverpool.
And I think probably just to finish this off, just to say, in terms of all these that we've looked at, it's still, when we're saying Guehi alternatives, it's still probably Guehi and one of this, because there's the expectation that I think, there's the expectation, you've got to be honest, Canate will move on or not sign. That seems to be the noises at the moment. Obviously, we hope that's wrong. But then Joe Gomez, the year left to go, another year older. So it's probably the expectation that nothing certain, but likely to move out. So it's Guehi on the free and one of these, isn't it?
I think that's fair. And again, I love Joe Gomez. I really do. And I think he showed all his qualities in the last game and what Joe Gomez can be. It's just unfortunate that he might prove me wrong, by the way, and he might have an amazing season. His body plays is brilliant. And I'd love nothing more than that. But at the moment, it seems like whenever he gets in a run of form, his body backs down and it doesn't let him carry on. And I think it's a criminal shame, because I think he could have been one of the country's best centre halves. But you kind of almost have to go that isn't really minutes you can rely on. Yeah. So if Canate goes, you're going to need to bring in someone to start and someone as another backup, because Leone isn't, even if we up him by 25% to 30% over this season, next season, that still only gets you to about 2,000 minutes. And equally, BB Dilberdy's final year, so he'll be getting on past mid-30s. So you're then looking at, you potentially want to start saying, look, mate, you might be the best centre half we've ever seen in this country, but we can't play 50 games. You got to play 40. So there's a balancing that to be had for all the minutes there. All right, is all I would be saying. So for us to bring in two Premier League centre halves that can play 3,000 top minutes at a top level and have the ability to then up their skill set in a more possession-based team, I think it'd be really smart. And it wouldn't cost us a lot of money to do that either. I know we're not short of cash, but still, it wouldn't cost us a lot of money to make these two deals.
So there you go, people. Michael Elise, let's hope there's a release clause. If there is, we'll be there. Maybe if there's not, we'll be there anyway. But, it will be an absolute fortune. But there's a reason for that if you can get an elite player. If they look at an alternative, it's unfair to compare Minteh directly with Salah or Elise. Maybe it's a change of style. But as we said at the start, as we introduced him, the info is that Liverpool have had a good look at this player. In terms of Guehi alternatives, because everyone knows what's being talked about around him, Canate and centre halves, there's a lot of options out there, a lot to like, different styles, whether it be a young monster, a progressive monster, an all-round type of player, there's ones to keep an eye on. All it really leaves me to say is, for going long, for answering all the questions, and for providing that ranking as ever, Barts, it is massively appreciated.
No worries, anytime. I hope the listeners enjoyed it.
And ladies and gents, that was another TMM special for Anfield Index.